2 weeks ago, we said we were going to strike Iran. And you know what they did? They said, oh, okay, if you do that, we're going to treat Elon Musk's Starlink infrastructure in the region as military assets, since Starlink helps the U.S. military. And we didn't go through with the strikes. You want to know why? Because SpaceX's IPO was scheduled for 2 days later. Like, there's no military solution to this conflict. Iran has figured out that this is a stock market war. Iran has studied that, and what they've learned is the playbook is, it's a really nice stock market you've got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it.
Yeah.
The first time I've ever heard about the 47-year Iran war was like this year. Like, we don't teach about the 47-year war with Iran in school. Like, it's insulting to actual conflicts that we've been involved in.
That you have no idea what the Iranians have done to us for 47 years.
How many Americans have they killed on U.S. soil in 47 years in the war that we've
They have killed thousands of Americans. They have maimed American soldiers. They have attacked American allies, and they have been at war with the West.
Guys, MAGA pundits are now turning into logic pretzels to defend Donald Trump's pointless and dumb war against Iran. Last night on Abby Phillip's show, MAGA idiot Scott Jennings was absolutely wrecked by Caroline Sunshine and Ana Navarro, and he was cornered into complete silence. Now, I'm going to play some clips from the debate. I'll give my opinion as we go.
Breaking news tonight, an escalation from Iran. Sources tell CNN that Israel has warned the United States of a new Iranian plot to assassinate President Trump. Some American officials suggested that the Israeli report could be an effort to sway Trump as he weighs whether to intensify his posture in Iran. But it does come after days of crowds of Iranians calling for Trump's death during the funeral for the slain supreme leader. At the NATO summit yesterday, Trump appeared to reference some of the threats against him.
They want to take out the U.S. leader, me. I'm on every list. I saw things this morning. I'm on every single one of their lists.
I may be gone too, because I'm their number one target. It's out all over the place. I'm their number one because they're scum.
It's the latest development that raises the question, is President Trump back to square one with Iran? This week, he said the 60-day memorandum of understanding was, quote, over. Both sides have exchanged strikes in the region. Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has slowed significantly again. And now sources tell CNN that mediators in the region are working to get the U.S. and Iran back to the negotiating table, a last-ditch effort to salvage what they can from the ceasefire agreement. Now, remember, that agreement just laid the groundwork to start talking about Iran's nuclear ambitions and what would happen to their enriched uranium. The gap between the United States and its stated goals and any chance of achieving them right now appears to be getting wider. This was 20-something days ago. This is J.D. Vance talking about what he predicted would be a complete change in the posture of Iran as a result of this MOU. Listen.
The coolest thing about the progress we've made over the last few weeks is that you see people within the Iranian system, senior leadership, even IRGC officials say, you know what? We may have some animosity, we may have some mistrust, but we recognize the way that we've done business with the United States for 47 years is a mistake. Let's try something else.
You know, Caroline, there was really nothing at the time that suggested that he was correct. Certainly nothing in the MOU. In the MOU, it doesn't even address any concrete things about the nuclear program, Iran's support for terror in the region. So were they just hoodwinked?
Well, I think we know now why J.D. Vance was sent out to go sell the MOU. And at the time, Marco Rubio was nowhere to be found. Like, if you remember, J.D. Vance was doing interview after interview after interview, going out and selling this deal. And Marco Rubio was like, what, DJing a wedding still or something? Like, he was nowhere to be found because, as we've now seen, Vance, I think, was set up to be, the fall guy for this. I think we can all agree that if Iran were to assassinate President Trump, that would be wrong, because it is wrong to assassinate leaders of sovereign nations, which is why we should have never assassinated the Ayatollah and replaced him with a younger version. But I don't think Iran wants to assassinate President Trump, because if they were to do that, that would create a rally around the flag effect for this war in the United States that we have not seen yet, and would almost 100% guarantee that the United States has no choice but to launch a full-on ground invasion of Iran, which is the one thing Iran does not want. They have figured out what we have not figured out, which is that this is an economic war. Okay, this war does not have a military solution. We've exhausted all the good military options. What Iran has figured out is war is about studying your opponent. And they've studied President Trump very well. And I think it was just last week, President Trump said, my biggest fear is being Herbert Hoover. I do not want to be the guy who crashes the U.S. stock market. And Iran has studied that, and what they've learned is the playbook is, it's a really nice stock market you've got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it.
Yeah.
Guys, one thing is pretty clear at this point. Our orange president does not want this war to end. He knows that if he ends the war now, he would lose a lot of support at home. Everyone, including his own base, would all call him a loser for ending the war on Iran's terms. And secondly, guys, Iran now has proven that it can just close one of the most important waterways of the planet at will, and no one can do anything about it, not even the mightiest military in the world. Iran's regime is now more stable and powerful than it ever was. They've now understood that they can damage infrastructure across the Middle East even while having completely lost air superiority and under constant attack. And they know that when the Middle East gets hurt, the world, including the United States, gets hurt. And Trump knows this pretty well. Guys, Trump didn't stop bombing Iran because they closed the strait. He didn't stop bombing them for the humanitarian reasons or because of dwindling stock prices or because they shot down our F-15. He stopped bombing them because they were doing lasting damage to our allies, and our allies demanded we stop. That's why he announces ceasefires again and again. And secondly, guys, I've been saying this in my videos for a long time now. Killing the old Ayatollah was a bad, dumb, stupid idea. Ayatollah was the only guy you could reason with in Iran. He was far more reasonable than his son, who is now the successor. Ayatollah was the one who signed the agreement with Obama, through which he agreed not to develop nuclear weapons. So I mean, why on earth did our dumb president order to kill him? It's just crazy. And the worst part is, now the IRGC has gotten rid of the old leader that was set in his ways and replaced him with a younger, angrier guy with a head full of ideas he's now able to implement with the cash his country is getting. A younger leader whose parents, wife, kids were all killed by U.S. strikes. It's just crazy how Trump has strategized this war.
I mean, he called it a risk of economic catastrophe. And Iran sees that, and they're using the leverage that they have. The Journal had an interesting take on this, which is that the MOU had this part about the Strait of Hormuz that was so poorly written that the U.S. thought that it opened up the Strait of Hormuz. But meanwhile, Iran reads it and they say, oh, actually, we control this strait. We're the ones who are going to decide who comes in and out. And now here we are.
I think it speaks to the flippant nature of the whole situation. I mean, if we're being honest, I think if most Americans are being honest with themselves, this whole crisis, this war was created as a shiny object to distract so many folks from the chaos that was around this administration at the time. And what looked to be was promised a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, is now turned into some sort of endless, unprojectable end. And it speaks to the serious nature of this. It speaks to the grave danger that not only the region, but the world sits upon. And there's really two outcomes. There's either the U.S. is going to give in to Iran, continue to give and give and give and give, or we're going to have to commit ourselves and our troops and our military to some sort of effort that is going to blow us away for extended periods of time. It's going to break a lot of people's mindsets as to what Donald Trump's true intentions are there. That's the ultimatum. There is no way to negotiate. This is a propaganda war. Donald Trump is using propaganda and he's propping up the markets. He's not talking to diplomats. He's not talking to generals on an hourly basis. He's talking to financial experts that are telling him when markets are closing, when markets are opening, and when PR needs to be pushed out to change the narrative.
Scott?
You seem to know exactly who Donald Trump is talking to. How do you know that?
Well, just as an American watching it play out, it certainly feels as though there's no sort of organized fashion of what's going on.
You said he's not talking to generals, that he's only talking to economic planners. I'm just asking how you know that. It just seems to be a wild assertion. I just wonder what evidence of that there is.
As a tax-paying American, I sit there and I watch this stuff play out within minutes after the markets close. I watch before markets open.
So no evidence. So here's what I think. I think we achieved a great military victory. The Iranian military is devastated. I disagree with Max. I don't think they're currently on the brink of building a nuclear weapon because they can't be because of the military victory that we have achieved.
I didn't say they were on the brink of building a nuclear weapon.
You said we haven't made any progress.
I said we have not eradicated their nuclear program like Trump said. They have 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium. They still have it.
Yeah, and it's buried beneath a significant amount of rubble.
And then they can take it out of there when they want to.
Thanks to the United States military. So that's number one. Number two.
Don't mischaracterize what I said,
After the military victory, they gave diplomacy a chance. And as the president said repeatedly, he always said, I would like to have a deal. I'm prepared for them to not behave, in which case they get nothing, and we have to go back to a military option, which is where we are today. Where it ends, I don't know. There hasn't been as much volatility in the oil market the last couple of days as some people might have projected, which is a good thing. But I do think it's true that they are not interested in rational outcomes here. And this whole threat to assassinate our president, just say one other thing, for all the people out there who've been crapping on our relationship with Israel and what we do with Israel and our alliance with Israel, they gave us intelligence to help us keep our president from being assassinated.
I think we need to focus on our intelligence, though, because our intelligence, if we listen to our intelligence, maybe we should start listening to our own intelligence, because not listening to our own intelligence agencies is how we got into this war. Our intelligence agencies assessed that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. That assessment has not changed throughout this war.
Israel also gave us intelligence telling us that the Iranian regime was about to fall, and that proved to be terribly false. I also think that there is a bigger foreign policy mess here. If you'll remember, January 3rd extricated Maduro out of Venezuela for what was supposed to be interim elections shortly afterwards. Venezuela has now been hit by 2 devastating earthquakes, and the Maduro vice president and his entire regime is still in place. They're completely incapable and inept to responding to these earthquakes. We saw this week U.S. officials, Southcom officials, greeting and hugging and meeting with the worst of the offenders, the executor of the oppression in Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello. And he couldn't, you see, so we couldn't be in Iran when 50,000 Iranians were getting slaughtered in the streets because a fourth or a third of the U.S. Navy was off the coast of Venezuela. And that now is a hot mess. The woman who gave him the peace prize, she's not even allowed back in her country. And there is nothing this administration is doing to do that.
Guys, my prediction is that Trump can't walk away from this war because that makes him look weak and allows Iran to control oil. He can't invade them because he doesn't have the manpower and it's too risky. He can't bomb them into submission because he already tried it and it didn't work. He can't bribe them because they've already rejected $300 billion in aid. So, I mean, what does he do? He blows up their refineries like a little kid smashing the game board. Iran counters by destroying the remaining refineries and wells located inside the territories of our Middle Eastern allies. And when it's all destroyed, then he claims victory and walks away and leaves the mess for someone else to clean up. I can bet on this. This is exactly how all of this is going to play out. This will be yet another war started by a Republican that'll cost us billions of dollars in losses and hundreds of American lives that some Democrats will have to extricate us from and then get eviscerated for doing so. And Democrats will pay for it for the next 2 election cycles. I mean, it is really exhausting. This cycle of Republicans setting shit aflame and then a Democrat coming in to fix it, only for the goldfish-like memories of Americans to forget and re-elect another Republican to destroy it all over again. This is one of those sci-fi plots where a war begins and lasts so long that people forget who even started it in the first place. Guys, I can't help but think the first chance Iran has to deal with American Democrat leadership, they'll be much more willing to make a mutually beneficial deal to end this war. They don't trust Trump because he lies all the time, because he breaks his promises all the time, because he has a bad, clown-like personality that nobody wants to trust.
Iran is a quagmire. It feels like every other day they tell us that this is about to end and it doesn't end. And Cuba, you got 10 million people without electricity, a grid that has completely collapsed, and a bunch of Cuban Americans in Miami wondering when the hell it's going to be their turn.
So to your point about whether this will be a quagmire, one of our viewers has a question. Where does the panel think that the U.S. will be a year from now in Iran? I mean, Max, you suggested that it's like an on-again, off-again conflict. But where does that end? Are we going to do that forever?
Well, to coin a term, Abby, it looks an awful lot like a forever war. You know, one of those forever wars that Trump was promising to end, and he just started one, and he doesn't know how to get out of it because he thought that the Iranian regime would fall within a few days, which no serious intelligence analyst, which the U.S. intelligence community, nobody really believed that. But Trump seemed to think that because Netanyahu told him that. Clearly, that's not the case. He doesn't have an exit strategy. And so we're basically stuck with this hostile regime, which is as big of a threat as ever to the rest of the region.
But if Republicans lose the House and or the Senate, can that change? Can a Democratic House and or Senate put some guardrails on Trump?
I doubt it because, you know, he has huge authority as commander in chief. He doesn't listen to Congress. I'm not sure that there's much like the only authority he recognizes, as we were discussing earlier, is the market. So he doesn't want to do something that tanks the market.
Guardrails for what? To go back to a world where we're all rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians? They've been at war with us for 47 years.
Rainbows and unicorns.
47 years? Okay.
Nobody has been rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians.
Why didn't I learn about the 40? I'm sorry. The first time I've ever heard about the 47-year Iran war was like this year. Like, we don't teach about the 47-year war with Iran in school. Like, it's insulting to actual conflicts
it's insulting
that we've
to
been
intelligence
involved
that you have no idea what the Iranians have done to us for 47 years.
How many Americans have they killed on U.S. soil in 47 years in the war that we've
They have killed thousands of Americans. They have maimed American soldiers. They have attacked American allies. And they have been at war with the West ever since this regime came to power. And it is their intention to build a nuclear weapon and use it on us and use it on Israel and use it on the West. That is their intention, and they state it every day.
No, they intend to just keep using the Strait of Hormuz. They have now learned that they can behave like a nuclear power without ever needing to be one. But, okay, so, like, if we're going to keep going with this, what number of American troops are we willing to commit to keep going? And, like, what's your number? Like, how many U.S. troops are you willing to expend to achieve your objectives? And what amount of money? Because, like, we're not having that conversation. And we need to, because we've already spent $300 billion. We've already lost. Like,
what
those
amount
are
of
the
money am I willing to expend
we need to answer.
To keep the American people safe from the worst regime in the world? A fair amount.
Okay, Iran, nobody is like, first of all, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. They don't want a nuclear weapon. And nobody is firing a nuke at a country that has 5,000 of them. You understand? Nobody is firing a nuclear weapon,
as Max knows,
at a country that has 5,000 of them.
You're arguing that there's some sort of a rational actor here. They're irrational people. It's pretty apparent.
Oh, I think they're very. I think
one of the other things about this, Scott, I heard you earlier saying that if they don't behave well, they don't get anything. Why is this always about what they get? What about what we need to get? We need to get the uranium. Yeah. We need to get inspectors on the ground. We need to get we need Iran to stop funding terror. And it seems like there's actually no mechanism whatsoever for us to get any of those
things. Safely navigate through the Strait of Hormuz.
And the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, that was the point of attempting diplomacy. But what they've learned is there was always a high percentage chance this was not going to work.
In the absence of diplomacy, what is the mechanism for us to get any of those things that we say we need?
In the absence of diplomacy?
Yeah. Because you're saying diplomacy is done. You're saying diplomacy is done. We're just gonna basically bomb them forever. But bombing them forever doesn't get us the nuclear material. It doesn't get us inspectors. It doesn't get us a change of their actual behavior. What does it get us?
It doesn't get us lower oil prices.
You posited that the choice was diplomacy or this. I don't know that diplomacy is done. Maybe it's not. I sort of think at the moment that it is. But number two, just like with any irrational bad actor, you have to be willing to monitor and pummel as needed. I mean, that is what will have to happen.
Sure, but again, how are we getting the things we want? That doesn't answer the question.
Well,
we can pummel them all we want, but we don't get a single thing as a result of that.
What do you mean? If we disable through military action their ability to wage war in the region or do any of the things you mentioned, that would be a good outcome.
We pummeled them at the beginning of the war.
For us? I mean, respectfully, 2 weeks ago, we said we were going to strike Iran. And you know what they did? They said, oh, okay, if you do that, we're going to treat Elon Musk's Starlink infrastructure in the region as military assets, since Starlink helps the U.S. military. And we didn't go through with the strikes. You want to know why? Because SpaceX's IPO was scheduled for 2 days later. Like, there's no military solution to this conflict. Iran has figured out that this is a stock market war. And so, I mean, they blunted our strikes. Like, you see how the chess works, right? We have the greatest fighting force in the world, but it's time to bring them home because there's not a military solution to this that doesn't involve us being over there years from now, which is what we don't want to that viewer's question.
Guys, the majority of Republicans have been cheerleading war with Iran for a generation. My entire life, every conservative I've ever come across thinks we ought to bomb the hell out of them. Is a common sense, practical solution to every single geopolitical issue they hear about, including Donald Trump, who does it all the time. At this point, guys, I really wonder how many different types of conservative Republicans there really are. There's the Trump kind, completely sure of how they are all geniuses and who will never ever admit anything remotely otherwise. And there's Joe Rogan kind, who are stupid enough to believe that those other guys are serious people, but then they never seem to come to the realization until everything is in ruins and they're like, oh gosh, it sounded good at the time, but it was just lying. Guys, it's embarrassing to say this, but the fact that the majority of our population elected Trump is the absolute proof that the population of the U.S. is, on average, absolutely stupid. You might be smart, and I might be smart, but it seems like there are 4 to 6 very stupid people for every 2 or 3 average to high IQ people in our country, dragging our average IQ into the sewer and making it possible to elect literally one of the worst and most disgusting humans ever. I might be wrong about it, but it sure feels like it lately. There are no words strong or accurate enough to describe how grotesque, dishonorable, shameful Donald Trump is. And having him as president is effing shameful for our country. He's a loser who has destroyed our once great country, and now it will take decades to fix what he's done. That's if we even get the chance to do so. And he's not the only one in this. There are hundreds of corporate interests, hundreds of senators, and at least half a dozen media outlets that are all just as responsible for Trump's mess. And the real and deep true blame goes to the voters in the end. Votes keep the corrupt and vile politicians in power. It's up to the voters to be truly informed. It's up to the voters to understand the difference between the truth and propaganda. A large portion of us understand that Trump is vile, but another large portion chooses to believe the propaganda and fall for fear. Fear of immigrants, fear of minorities, fear of socialism and communism when they don't even know what it is. All right, guys, I'm done for today. I'll see you tomorrow with another video.